Hello, welcome to BA Brew. I'm Debbie.
I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're talking about something that engages all of us, perhaps in slightly different ways, which is the concept of failing fast. And we've all got quite a lot to say about this, but I'm going to say, Mike, kick us off on failing fast. Where does it come from?
It's an odd one. I really don't like the term failing fast. And I thought, well, it's got to have come from somewhere and it's got to have some kind of use and relevance. So I looked it up a bit and found out it comes from software engineering. And the term is used or is associated with testing your parameters and testing the resources you're using in your code early on, so that if your code is going to fail, you can fail fairly early on. You haven't done a whole load of work. It's also associated with test-driven development as well. So in developing our code, by developing it with a view to proving that these tests are successful, we can fail early and sort those problems out. I really don't like the term fail fast though, and I don't like the way it's been sort of taken over to business, and we're all told we've got to fail fast.
It's moved into management speak, and it's one of those terms you might play bingo against. Senior leaders speaking about things, and it'll be touch base or fail fast, or one of these other terms that comes up, and I don't think it really means a great deal when we're talking about it in a business context. I think it's not the goal to fail faster, so it's therefore wrong to say fail fast, and a little bit, I don't know, a little bit lazy, because there's a meaning that I think is implied around learning and improvement that's missed when you say fail fast. I think it's just lazy.
I think as well, it's sort of been one of those things that has become accepted. It's like received wisdom, isn't it? And actually, I've been on the receiving end of software, as it happens, that has obviously been put out there at a very early stage, and it's wasted so much of my time and energy. And I don't want to be part of your fail fast, thank you. I'd like to be using software that works. And I sort of think that you're right. It's become one of those things that's been deemed acceptable. And it's time we questioned it, guys, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, though, the point around continuous learning, improvement, harnessing knowledge, experimentation, pilot, feedback, prototypes, there's loads of really interesting things that are related to this lazy term called fail fast that are really useful. But we're saying, right, go fail fast. So I'm going to share. I worked in an organization where there was a senior leader, very senior, probably 6-7 levels above me, that was known to shout at people quite often. And he picked up on this phrase fail fast, and he started to tell people you should fail faster. I need people to fail faster. And then he'd shout at you if you got anything wrong. And it was kind of, what's going on? What is going on there? It doesn't make sense. And it's just, I don't know, I think it's a bit stupid.
It's such a negative language as well. The whole idea of failure and the word fail, there's so many negative connotations with that. None of us set out to fail. And I struggle with that. It kind of, there's not many things get my goat, but if somebody says that to me, I kind of think, no, I'm not in this to fail. I'm with you, Jonathan. It's not about failure. And I much prefer the term test and learn, because actually what you want to do, you want to test something out. You want to experiment with something.
Yeah.
And sometimes things will go a little bit wrong, but the point is actually you learn from it. And interestingly, I can apply that to one of my hobbies is beekeeping. And if I apply the fail fast principle to beekeeping, when I first started beekeeping, I didn't want to put a bee suit on and go into the apiary with sort of 15 hives around me and lots of bees and discover that I'd failed to put my bee suit on properly, because that whole sort of sting experience is not something I really enjoy. Even years after becoming a beekeeper, I still don't like being stung. I might prefer the idea of that test and learn. So get the suit on, perhaps get somebody else to check with me, not necessarily go into such a dangerous environment as an apiary full of very excited bees. And yeah, so that's kind of how I would apply it. Really, that I really didn't want to fail. Didn't want to fail at that.
That sounds Yeah, that sounds horrible to me, actually, Mike, because one, I'm not very keen on insects. Two, yeah, I don't like being stung at all. Actually, not I don't mind it some of the time. I just don't like the idea of it. And the idea of going in somewhere where there's lots of, how did you put it? Excited bees.
Excited, yes, yeah.
No, that doesn't work for me at all. But I do love test and learn, and because I think actually you can learn so much by trying stuff. And these days we do a lot of sort of experimenting and trying things out, and we iterate around things, we discuss it between us to see what works, what doesn't work, and I love that type of thing, because I think just by trying things you learn so much. And I am a bit of a learning geek, as I think everybody who knows me will know. But in my life I have actually learned from things, but I don't consider them failures, even though other people might. So one of the things that happened to me, and this was a long time ago, okay, so don't judge me, okay? I don't want any judging. I was very young.
Would we do that?
I was very young, okay, and I had to get 8 ounces of Rice Krispies.
Ounces?
Ounces.
What are ounces,
It was
Debbie?
a long time ago, people. Okay. And so, yes, it was ounces, I will confess. And we didn't have a weighing scales in my house. I don't know why. I don't know if it's broken or what it was. So I thought, how am I going to work out 8 ounces? So I thought, I know, a tablespoon of flour is an ounce. I don't know if you know that, but it is. Okay, a tablespoon of flour is an ounce. So I thought, or if you prefer in modern day language, 15 mil. It was an ounce back in the day. I'll just do 8 tablespoons of Rice Krispies. No problem whatsoever. So I rock up to school, for I was in school, with my bag of Rice Krispies. I mean, everybody else in the class had bags like it. Now, as you can tell, I've never forgotten it. Okay. It wasn't what you'd call one of my greatest successes in life, but boy, did I learn something. I've never made that mistake again.
So what did you learn from that?
I learned that a tablespoon of Rice Krispies is not the same as a tablespoon of flour in weight.
Okay.
As I say, do not judge. Okay.
It is a very specific skill, that, actually.
I'm thinking there's a serious message here, though, around having the right tools to do the job. Like, if you're going to measure Rice Krispies, you need some scales. And I don't know, sometimes there's, in this fail faster fallacy, I'm trying to take it serious again, guys, you can tell me off. We need to be able to choose the right tools and be confident we can choose the right tools to do the job. And if we can't get the right tools, let's say so, we haven't got the right tools, we can't achieve these outcomes. And have a conversation about it. But for me, to be able to raise it and know that this is a possibility. I can't believe I've linked Rice Krispies to the BA toolkit, but there we go.
It's sort of back to your beekeeper outfit, isn't it, Mike? You had to know that you not only had the right gear, but that you were using it correctly, and you thought about it. And I think that's the other thing with test and learn. There's a sort of a bit in the middle called reflection. And I'm really, really keen on reflection. I have to tell you, I did not have to reflect for very long on the Rice Krispies incident, as we will now call it. But I mean, Mike, I'm sure you thought and reflected a lot before you really went into the apiary.
I did, and to be honest, I gave you the short version of the story. Actually, my testing and learning, I discovered that my beekeeping suit that I'd bought very cheaply on eBay was not the best of beekeeping suits, because I discovered the thin cotton wasn't really sufficient to stop me being stung. So I did actually learn from that before I actually went to deal with a large amount of bees, I needed to get a much thicker all-in-one suit. My son and daughter also learnt to their cost that I hadn't got the right specification of beekeeping smock as well, because they both got a few stings on other occasions. They're fine now. They love bees. They're really keen on bees. But I in that environment, I'd learnt reasonably quickly at relatively low risk. Okay, a few stings, but yeah. Actually, and interestingly, you can kind of apply.
Sorry, you raised a good point about risk there as well, Mike, because you've obviously tested that.
Yes, and actually that's interesting. I don't know whether it's all of my hobbies rhyme with bees, but one of my other hobbies is smoking cheese. And we won't talk about smoking cheese particularly, but when I set up a beehive to do cold smoking of cheese, I thought a friend of mine at work used to cure fish as well, and he taught me how to cure fish. And I thought, I'm going to cure some fish and smoke it. Um, but I thought I was really quite excited about this, and I wanted to try it and share it with people. But I thought, actually, this fail fast, test and learn. I thought, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to take it into work to share with my colleagues, because if the risk there could be quite high. If I poison all of my colleagues at work, that's not going to go down very well. If I make myself a little bit poorly, then that serves me right. So I kind of applied that. It worked well. I was out of hospital very, very quickly.
Were the children in this one?
No, I didn't end up in hospital. It was quite safe. To be honest, I'm still a little bit nervous when I cure and smoke fish. That I don't share that with too many people. Quite happy sharing the smoked cheese and smoked nuts. It sounds like an advert for Mike's Little Deli, doesn't it?
Mike's Deli, available. List the website. Oh, no.
Only a small risk of food poisoning.
But isn't it great though that actually what some of the stuff that we do work-wise, where we think about, trying stuff out, we think about experimenting, we reflect on stuff, we learn from it. There's something really positive about that, because it takes you somewhere. And we've talked before about the black box thinking book and the example about Dyson developing the vacuum cleaner, and how he had to do it, his trials, I think over 1,000 times before he got where he wanted to go. But there's something fabulous about the fact that it was based on trial, feedback, review, test again. Do you know what I mean? Improving every time. And I just think there's something brilliant about that story. I mean, the persistence is amazing, and I'm not sure, I would quite have that level of persistence myself. But on the other hand, you'd have to have a learn mindset, wouldn't you? And a focus on success mindset, that you knew you were going to get there. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, you'd never do that, would you?
Yeah, a clear goals and outcomes, and then a culture where it's safe to experiment, test, learn as well. And that one's a really powerful example, I think, in terms of the positive aspect of the learn fast or test and learn approach. And that's kind of the exemplar, and you've taken the time to look at it and study it, Debbie. And I'm concerned about is that people have not taken the time to really understand the meaning of these words, and they're just putting it out there because they think it sounds good, and it's all a bit strange. I really like the environment and the risk part. What's the environment in which you're testing and learning, and what's the risk and reward? I think we should go into discussion, because the reward of the smoked cheese or the smoked and cured fish or whatever it is, like you've got a balance of risk. Oh, I might have an upset stomach for a day, versus you get some really tasty food potentially. And it's kind of that in the context of that Dyson example. Well, what's the risk and the reward if Dyson get that right? It's the risk is relatively small, but the reward's huge when they do get there, because some of their products are industry leading.
Yeah, yes. And it is interesting, because I think the reason maybe why we're not so keen on the fail fast, and your example, Jonathan, of having, a senior manager just having that as a mantra, but then, really sort of criticizing people if something does go wrong. I think you've got different mindsets there. And I think the three of us are all quite sort of learning mindset people, aren't we, really? And you apply that mindset in every part of your life, don't you? Because actually then you keep moving forward, and you see things that you do as an experience that you can reflect on and gain from. And I just prefer that way of looking at the world. And Mike, I think the fact that it is in that particular context in software engineering where it really applies, that's really great to know, isn't it? Because then you're not going to just put it into the business world and apply it without even thinking about it.
So what do you think the correct term is? If we're trying to get it into 2 or 3 words, would it be learn faster? What is it that do you think people should be saying or at least considering? That's a tough one, maybe. Don't get stung by bees. It's a bit too long.
I do like the phrase test and learn, because
learn,
it does encapsulate what you're trying to do. You've
Yeah.
got some kind of idea, you've got something you want to find out a bit more about, give it a go, and it'll either be successful, which you'll learn from, or it'll be unsuccessful or less successful.
Yeah.
But you should learn from it. And that the whole learning mindset is about being ready to reflect on that, as you were saying, Debbie, and then find, hopefully you can find some positives in that failure. But the whole failure thing, that sort of falling down the negative wormhole is the thing that I wanted to try to avoid.
Yeah.
It's interesting if you think about the way comedians, or a lot of comedians, develop their material. They will do sort of small tours and things where they can actually try out some of their jokes and polish them and refine them. So when you hear them on at the Edinburgh Festival or wherever, they've been told loads and loads of times, and they've been refined and tuned, and just the wording has just been made perfect. Yeah. So we get that big laugh. But if we went with the first version, probably you get nothing out of it. So it's interesting that maybe we should look at how we can apply the world of comedy into business analysis more often.
That's a great idea. I've always thought being a trainer is being like a stand-up comedian, and I'm serious. I've always thought that. Okay. There are a lot of synergies, guys, if you care to look and learn at them. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because yes, there's something there where you think, well, let's have a look at how they do it. And does that help us? Does that help us as business analysts to think about things that way? Because they have to deal with a lot of different stakeholders, some of whom are quite antagonistic, aren't they?
Yes, the chance of failure is quite high in some of those circumstances, when you've got people who perhaps don't want to be in the room, people who've had a lot to drink, might have had a bad day. There's so many variables that they've got.
Mike, are you talking about workshops or comedy festival?
Sorry, I've had a good day today.
Yeah, it is quite interesting, and it sort of comes back to that idea, doesn't it, of taking something from one world and then superimposing it on another. And I think, Jonathan, you mentioned experimentation. And in business and in business change, it's great to think through different ways of doing things and to try things out and experiment. And actually, that's a really nice technique, actually, to take something from another world and try it here. And if your focus then is on learning from it and trying it out and learning feedback, that's just so positive. It really is. So there we go. Okay, so have we exhausted our subject of failing fast, and will we never ever utter that phrase again?
I think we're not doing room 101, are we? But I think we should just throw this one in the bin, never to be uttered again, and hopefully
we're going to have to make room in the bin, though, aren't we? Because Rasky's in there.
Rasky needs to stay where it is, and I don't know why you're trying to wind me up, Mike. But Rasky can stay there with Fail Fast, and they can live happily together at the bottom of the bin, and not be used.
Okay, so on that bombshell, thank you very much for discussing this, and thanks everybody for listening to our BA Brew on failing fast, or as we're now going to call it, testing and learning.